All right, everyone, it's time to talk about the elephant in the room, the thing that so many of you have been commenting on, and that is Jango. And I guess more specifically, the meta at large. What is going to happen? If you guys remember about last time we had a rules update when Boba Fett got banned, pretty much the start of set 3, FFG mentioned they would be back in March to give us an update on the kind of rules and the overall meta and whether or not they're going to make any changes, or more specifically balance changes with restricting, removing, banning, whatever they're going to do, because we've only had the one really, but what they're going to be doing based on the meta. And I know they're going to be looking out for planetary qualifier data. They're going to be looking at a lot of the different major tournament data. And at the end of set 3, we saw a ton of Han Solo. That was the main contender for the vast majority of finishes. Not specifically Han Yellow, but just Han Solos from set 1 in general. Now, with Jump to Light Speed off to a decent start here, we've had a few small tournaments. As you can see, a lot of them are ranging from 15 or so to about 40 people, which are not like completely casual meme status level of people like you and your friend battling it out. They're reasonable, small, casual tournaments, and in some cases, well, minor tournaments or weekly play areas. But we are going to be diving into our first major tournaments, including, well, as of recording this video, we've got the Boston Invitational over in Atlanta. We also have our first sector qualifier tomorrow with 1,000 players, so a lot of players, and we're going to see the meta hopefully develop and actually showcase itself for Jump to Light Speed. Now, I'm not going to say that this is going to be, okay, set in stone, this is set for Jump to Light Speed's meta, because, well, as the tournaments continue onwards, we will see a development countering as well as options further to change your lists to potentially allow more leaders into the fray, or something as we saw with set 3, where Sabine was absolutely dominant in the earlier stages just because aggro tends to be a really nice go-to, and then we slowly started to see more Jango, more Han 1, more Quinlan, more Cad Bane as we went through. That can absolutely happen. But the biggest thing that people are mentioning is, what are we going to be doing with Jango? Jango got so many things from set 4. By far the best additions to a already really good deck, like top 5 in set 3. Okay, so we have a deck that was already incredibly good, and then we add extremely some of the best staple cards to Jango Red to it. War Juggernaut is absolutely absurd. Devastator is also absolutely absurd in those lists. And IG 2000 is a great addition. Those 3 cards alone just take Jango Red to the next level. And now we're seeing a ton of Jango Reds just completely dominate the matchups where you are somewhat racing or somewhat being a little bit more aggressive or relying on your units to go and deal with the board. Jango is exceptional at dealing with all those scenarios, being able to exhaust your opponent's units the entire way through a game. Now, here's the thing. Not every deck got insane upgrades. Jango was one of the exceptions that feels like he probably got the most, and at least in my opinion, did get the most. So we have a top 5 list already that feels like he got the biggest bump. So besides, new set 4 potential leaders like Piet or Kazuda, or even other set 3 leaders like Han 1, the biggest thing is Jango was already a pretty, not dominant force necessarily, but a big contender. And now we're seeing even more Jango. So a lot of people have been asking, are we going to see Jango banned? We also saw this discussion with Han 1. Are we going to see Han 1 banned? If you just take here, at least just a little quick look through some of the tournaments that have been going on. This one is kind of a minor tournament in Spain for 38 players. If you look at the finishes, the top 8, we have 5 Jango Reds, 2 Han Yellows, and a Quinlan Red. This next one here with 39 players, we have Palpatine yellow, Han set 1 Han green, we have a Jango red, Anakin blue, Sabine green, other Anakin blue, Han yellow, and Quinlan red. If we look at this 10 player, very small tournament. Really not much stock into this one, to be honest, just because it's a 10 player tournament. But just a little example, lots of set 4, right? And then we have double blue Gar Saxon. And then this other one, 16 players, Jango red, Quinlan red, Han green, Thrawn blue. So obviously, like, yes, in the bigger tournaments, we are seeing a pretty dominant force from some of the meta options. Han yellow, Quinlan red, Jango red. As we get to the more meme, I say meme, but it's not really a meme, but the more casual weekly play, super small showdown type level tournaments, you're going to see a lot more B tier, C tier lists that are going to encroach. But as you get to bigger and bigger tournaments, people tend to put a little bit more stock in the deck that they chose. And of course, there can still be off meta options that people bring in, but they're going to be bringing in most often more meta options because the stakes are higher. So I wouldn't be surprised to see something like the 38 player tournament where we had a massive amount of Jango Fetts, or even the 39 player tournament where we had a good portion of like the more A/S tier lists, the Sabines, the Quinlans, the Jangos, the Han ones, things like that show up. And with these two tournaments, this is going to give us a great idea. And honestly, based on our previous post, again, FFG mentioned when Bubble was banned, they're going to return to adjust the balance of the game potentially, or maybe not do anything, but at least review the state of the meta in March. And with these two tournaments being exceptionally big tournaments, I wouldn't be surprised to see some sort of message from FFG on the state of the meta if we do see a major Jango showing. Now, I haven't been able to find the complete breakdown of a lot of the decks or even the top 8s of this yet, but in a video tomorrow, hopefully we'll have some of that data, and at least the sector qualifier in Milan. This hasn't even, happened yet because it is, not quite time to start. The US one had been going on for quite some time now as of recording this video, so we're probably going to get that data soon, possibly tomorrow, at least from this site. But we're going to see whether or not Jango and Han actually do represent a major portion of the meta, and specifically Jango with all those new additions as to what is going on, and whether or not Jango Fett is a little too strong. Now, my prediction, I suppose, on these tournaments is that we are going to see a major Jango showing. One of the unique things about set 4 here that hadn't happened in the previous sets is that we're getting a pretty big tournament quite soon after the release of the set. If you look at the planetary qualifiers that first started showing up from set 3, it did take a little while for those to actually pop up as options for people to go ahead and submit their decks. We're getting a sector qualifier 2 weeks after set release. We're getting a Bothan Invitational, 6K prize pool 2 weeks after. These are big tournaments that immediately go ahead and pop up to really show us where the meta situates itself. The things like Jango Red, the things like Kazuda, the things like Sabine, Jango, Hanyo, all still fantastic decks. We don't really quite know if there's a bunch of set 4s that are going to pop up, but we absolutely do know if anyone's been playing set 4, and if you happen to have the option to test some of the meta decks, Jango is a threat to contend with. It is insane. And at least right now, I would definitely put it as the number 1 list. There are lists that do well against it, like the more hard control lists that don't rely on their units. But most of the decks, especially from set 3, if you look at the Tarkentown lists or the lists that are trying to get in damage, almost all of them really struggle against Jango because of how aggressive, and especially with the new additions, how absolutely decimating it can be to completely shut down your entire game plan when you get to the mid game, which Jango now can do. And you even have a little bit more late game potential with TDR and Devastator, as you could drop that out, do massive damage, and close out a game just on its own, where that option really didn't exist. It did kind of, in that you could drop a Ruthless Raider, but Devastator plus the Triple Arc Ray just gives it so much more mid-game, late-game potential because of the immediate damage you can pump out. So lots and lots of scary things with Jango, and I do think it is one of the more oppressive decks in the format, and it is something that a lot of people are frustrated with. So what we see from this tournament can really determine the course of the next potential 3-4 months in the game in terms of meta, because FFG could respond by banning out a certain card, deck, leader, just as they did with Boba Fett. And that would be pretty funny. Not saying that I think they should, because I don't think Jango's to that point, although it is quite an oppressive deck. I don't know if it's really to the Boba Fett level. We will see, obviously. But it would be kind of funny to have 2 Fett leaders banned. That just is a little bit fitting. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below about Jango and what's going on and what you expect to see from these tournaments. As I said, my predictions are Jango going to be at the top. I do think Sabine, Han Yellow are going to be big representations at the tournament. After that, we've got Quinlan's, Cad Bane Reds, some of the classics as well. I think you could absolutely see some Kazudas there, and I think you could absolutely see some Piets. But realistically, a lot of people tend to play it safe at the beginning of the meta, and that's where we're at right now. So decks like Sabine are known quantities. Jango Fett, pretty much a known quantity. And you got so many new additions that it just feels super strong to bust that out. And I could definitely see that potentially raising a few eyebrows over an FFG's core. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Thanks for watching, everyone. And I will happily provide you with an update on these 2 tournaments tomorrow as soon as we get the results. See you then.